We have more details about the new F-47. We know what the general inspiration is, how many will be built, and how the program is going to proceed. And we have confirmation that it doesn't exist, at least not yet.
That was a mediocre teaser, sir.
Thank you, Otis. Nice and encouraging, like always. Hi, welcome. I am Gas, he is Otis, and this is Millennium 7. So we had the F-47 presentation in the Oval Office a few weeks ago, but also the speech of General Aldrin and the interview with two ex-Department of the Air Force officials who were part of the previous administration and were deeply involved in the NGAD program. If we put everything together, we start having a minimal picture to work with. The general concept of the aircraft is that of a successor of the F-22, so it will be a piloted high-performance platform. There won't be uncrewed variants, at least not for now, but the aircraft is designed to work, since the beginning, with whatever is produced by the parallel CCA program. And for those who don't know, the Collaborative Combat Aircraft program is expected to produce a UCAV whose job is to operate together with the fighters in a very autonomous way that leaves the pilot free to understand and manage the tactical situation. Currently, General Atomics and Anduril are working on the two prototypes that will participate to the so-called Increment 1 stage competition, if ever there will be one.
You are digressing, sir.
It seems that the Air Force will use this increment concept with the F-47 too. The so-called Increment 1 aircraft will be built by Boeing, but the following iteration, the Increment 2, may be something very different and eventually not even built by Boeing.
It reminds me of Windows 10, sir.
Yes, Otis, but Windows is always made by Microsoft. It is really difficult to understand the logic behind the idea that, to foster competition, the losers of this round might come back next time. If, for example, Lockheed Martin wins the next competition, the aircraft will be completely different than the Boeing design, unless Boeing is forced to share the intellectual property with Lockheed Martin, which really seems outlandish. Should it happen, it is certain that Lockheed Martin, in turn, will not include any valuable proprietary technology in the iteration, because at some point they will be forced to share it with others. It is very likely that Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman will be subcontractors for some components, but the system design and integration is an entirely different beast. In Russia or China, there is indeed competition, but being the company state-controlled, profit is not really an important element of the equation, so at the end of the day, the players do what is considered best for the country. In this case, it doesn't seem that competition is a viable choice to obtain the same result because of the cost associated with switching suppliers. I personally suspect that there will be an increment every few years with important redesigns from one to another, but the main contractor won't change for a while. Obviously, to pursue this increment approach, where there are big leaps forward rather than the continuous block improvements, something must be done to speed up the development time. The answer, I am guessing, is digital engineering. This approach so far has a mixed record. It is working well with the B-21, it is having problems with the T-7. But it is reasonable to expect that it will improve and it will shorten the development time and reduce at least some of the costs. Anyway, the Increment 1 order will be for about 100 units, each one costing between $200 and $300 million. This is a huge amount, which indicates that the Air Force has shelved, for the moment, any idea of light fighter.
That is very few aircraft, sir.
Indeed, it is a small number, Otis. Normally it is believed that a smaller number of better platforms may prevail against more numerous but less technologically advanced platforms. The cultured way of saying this is that the design philosophy is based on dollars per effect. That is, how much it costs to achieve a specified effect. For example, a more advanced platform could, in theory, destroy the opponent's air defenses with fewer missions, fewer weapons, and fewer losses, thus reducing the unitary cost of air defense destruction. The flip side of this philosophy is that every time one platform is unavailable or it is lost, the dent in the overall capabilities is much higher than it would be with simpler and more numerous aircraft. Remember that aircraft can be grounded by strikes on air bases, by the lack of spare parts, or by some food poisoning in the officer's mess. So the individual aircraft capability is not necessarily reflected in the overall effectiveness of the force. In the case of the F-47, though, this numeric gap will be partially covered by the CCAs that are expected to regularly operate with the aircraft. The CCA is no longer the lightweight and untreatable platform that was conceived at the beginning of the program. It is expected to cost around 30 million per unit. The Air Force general plan is to have 2 CCAs for each piloted platform, even though some tests have shown that a pilot should be able to control up to 6 units for particular purposes. However, all of this, at the moment, is a plan, and it is on paper only, because the aircraft doesn't exist yet. The official declaration was that X-Planes have quietly flown in the background and set some records. It is unclear if they are 2 or 3. So, what is an X-Plane? An X-Plane, it is an aircraft built to do research. Like the X-15 was designed to explore high supersonic speeds and high altitudes. Or they could be like the X-53, to stay in Boeing house, which was built to study the active aeroelastic wing concept. A similar concept is the technology demonstrator, which is built to do research, but it is usually associated with a specific program, and it has the role of developing a technology rather than just generically researching it. An interesting non-US example was the EAP, the precursor of the Eurofighter Typhoon. In both cases, these are built in a single or very few units. They are built individually by hand, and they're not built on an assembly line. And in the case of the F-47, it has been clearly stated, and I have no reason for not believing it, that the X-Planes were not representative of the finished product, so they were not prototypes. A prototype, in fact, is an aircraft representative of the finished product. It is still built by hand, usually in various units, which are used to test and trim different areas. And in the US, they are often designed with an Y, like the YF-22 and the YF-23, but it is not a strict rule because the F-35 originated from a competition between the X-35 and the X-32. In the case of the F-47, though, it seems that no prototype was built for the competition, but the order was assigned only by assessing the 2 different designs. At least this is the case if we have to stick to the public declarations. It seems quite strange and granted, but I suppose that they trust the digital engineering process enough to deem that a flyaway competition wasn't necessary. And just to complete the picture, a pre-series aircraft is an aircraft that is built on the assembly line, that is complete in terms of development, whose main purpose is to test the assembly process before starting the serial production. We could speak of the concept of concurrency, which blurs the lines among these different stages, and it is one of the sources of the F-35 issues, but we skip this for now.
What about forever, sir?
That's not polite, Otis. That's not polite. So, thank you very much for watching this short video so far. Even bigger thank you to all those who are supporting the channel financially on Patreon by being a member or by any of the other means. You guys are the best. And if you can't support the channel financially, which is perfectly fine, please do it only if you can, then just interact with the video. Leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't, and the video will be served to more people who could be interested. So, this is it. Thank you very, very much for watching, and see you next time. And the cut. This is very short.